On the 16th of February, the Department of Government Efficiency of the United States of America published a post on social media platform X announcing a list of funding initiatives that were recently stopped or cancelled. In it was $486 million that was given to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, CEPPS, which included $21 million for boosting voter turnout in India. That is equal to 182 crore rupees as per today's dollar to rupee conversion rate. This NGO, CEPPS, that received millions of dollars in funding and has been active since 1995, its website has now been taken down. And then, a former State Department official of the US, Mike Benz, said that US-based International Republican Institute was used to quote-unquote destabilize Bangladeshi politics. The US financed Bangladeshi rap groups to create songs and music videos to promote anti-government sentiment. They made songs that strategically targeted students and youth activists to encourage mass protests. The USAID, the aid arm of US foreign policy, also gave $446,000 for promoting atheism in Nepal. The question is why? For India, the question is who in India received that $21 million purse spent to improve voter turnout in India? Apparently, the Trump administration in the US handed over a list of names of journalists and NGOs who got money from USAID. Will those names be revealed and investigated? Also, under what should their actions be looked at? For India, Nepal and Bangladesh are both its neighbors. The question is, so what should India be doing now? Joining me on the News9 Plus show are Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, former Indian diplomat, and Pathikrit Payne, foreign affairs expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on the News9 Plus show. I mean, that sum of $21 million, it has no business being, a source of funding for an NGO from the US government. And that too, to boost voter turnout here in Indian elections.
Well, voter turnout in the Indian elections has always been good because our election commission and other agencies themselves have been working quite hard at it. They have eased our processes. What appears is that this money was used to finance some political parties, though of course detailed evidence in this regard may still take some time to come. But my impression from other sources is that this money was used to finance certain political parties in India which were close to the Democrats, the Congress party, Mr. Kejriwal's party, such parties, because if you remember, Rahul Gandhi was invited by the Americans to the United States, and he had very high-profile meetings, including with President Biden and with senior cabinet officials. And similarly, it is known that when the American agencies' representatives visited India, including New Delhi, they met the AAP representatives. They also met, the political parties in Tamil Nadu and so on, in West Bengal and so on, which are in opposition parties to the center. So this has been going on for quite a while, and it is well known that the coup in Bangladesh was financed by the Americans with the help of the ISI of Pakistan. And now, of course, the details are coming that they used that institute and they funded some student groups. They funded the Jamaat-e-Islami and its students' wing, and how all those groups were mobilized to, to bring up opposition against the Sheikh Hasina regime,
Right.
the Sheikh Hasina government. So all this is well known. The only thing is some details are coming out now, and I hope more details come out. Now, as far
Right.
as lesson, what India should do, India can do. I mean,
We'll get to that. We'll
we
get to
are
Ambassador
keeping a
Yogesh Gupta.
watch on these.
We'll get to the lessons, but let's
Okay.
first try to
Okay.
understand, what exactly is going on over here. Pathikrit, this looks like, this is a fairly open and shut case, isn't it? It just reaffirms something that we've all known all along.
Well, absolutely. And we have seen during the last 10 years the kind of interference, the kind of efforts of anarchy, orchestration of anarchy, the kind of efforts that were created to, trigger civil unrest in this country. All these things have happened, and it has happened right in front of our eyes. We have seen during the anti-CA protest how, and absolutely something which has nothing to do with Muslims of India, a deliberate false narrative was created. It was made to gain traction in digital and social media. The big tech companies were hand in glove with it. Efforts, funding came from abroad, and during election process also. So you made a right question as to where the money actually went. One tendency that we have seen during 2024 Lok Sabha election, if those who are very popular or perhaps come frequently on digital media channels, they have witnessed that if you speak something in favor of the establishment or Modi government, your traction or the views were completely restricted. And if you say something anti-establishment, it got massive traction. So possible use of AI and algorithms was done. It is an open and shut case. There are institutions like IPSMF who have been involved in alleged funding of organizations and entities who run these channels who are anti-establishment. And surprisingly, in the name of expanding democracy, popularizing democracy, country after country, these elements have gone. USAID has used National Endowment for Democracy, International Republican Institute through the CEPPS to fund such elements who are extremist in nature. In Bangladesh, they have taken help of Jamaat-e-Islami. In Bangladesh, they have taken help of Hifazat-e-Islam. In Afghanistan, who strengthened Taliban, who after 20 years of rule in Afghanistan ensured that they hand it over to Taliban itself. So they have various types of tools. If you look at what happened in Libya, Gaddafi was he may have been a dictator. He was a very progressive person. He talked about women empowerment. He talked about education. He talked about building modern, systems. And he was killed literally in a war which was orchestrated by certain elements of the US administration. Today, in the last 10 to 15, almost 10 years, Libya is in a civil war and done by the Obamas.
Right.
And I'm telling you this. So these things were known. Fortunately, today the names are coming out, but we need to have very clear.
Actually, Pathikrit, the names are yet to come out. Pathikrit, the names are yet to come out. We only know that $21 million was spent from USAID to quote-unquote improve voter turnout. In India, Ambassador, let me bring these things back to you. You're talking about what they should do. Look at what is happening side by side. Look at what is happening in Bangladesh. They're spending money to finance rap groups to create music over here. Meanwhile, they're spending money in Nepal to promote atheism. $450,000 being spent in Nepal to promote atheism.
Yes, what we have to do is that we have to keep a very close watch, a close tab on the activities of the US intelligence agencies, the activities of the British intelligence agencies and their other agencies like Canada and so on, which are friendly to them. So much is going on in India, but our intelligence agencies are not able to fully keep a tab on what's going on. Similarly, in terms of technologies, I think we need to catch up. We need to catch up because while the Americans are very easily able to snoop on the conversation of our diplomats and our other people, we don't have similar, we should also be in a position to have similar means. Similarly, on satellite intelligence, again, we have lagged behind. So, we have to catch up, we have to keep up, we have to progress on these latest technology and means of intelligence collection, Similarly, in sensitive countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, we need to have sufficient people on the ground, and there it is not difficult to do. We need to have
Right.
sufficient people on the ground and use the technological means to find out what is going on. Given the size of India's economy, given the resources that we have, and considering that these countries are in our neighborhood, it should be possible. I can't understand why can't we do it. So much was going on in Bangladesh for the last 3 to 4 years. Now, we should have been in a position to monitor and tab everything and keep our people informed and keep Sheikh Hasina informed. Similarly, keep the present government in Nepal informed. So I think there is a need for India to boost its intelligence collection, both human as well as in technical, technological, and so that we are able to we are able to know what's going on precisely. These countries will continue to do these things because they think that we will not be able to catch them.
Right, but looks like somebody has caught them, Pathikrit, and that's the reason why we at least know now the $21 million was spent by USAID to quote-unquote promote voter turnout in India. But then Trump has given names. Those names are yet to be out. We still don't know who in India got that $21 million.
Well, I think Trump is doing a yeoman's
Yes,
work for
we
many
have
of the
to
other democracies.
find out.
I
please
think
go ahead,
Trump is
Pathikrit.
doing a yeoman's work for better world. A lot of things that he is doing is actually, I think we should be grateful to him. Now it is time for democracies like India to do the needful. Names should be brought out to the public. And let me tell you one thing: there are so many things that happen in our country, especially it has happened in the last 10 years, where it apparently looked like a normal democratic process. It was not. There was an external dimension to it. There was an external funding to it. There was an external funding in case of Bangladesh. Now we need to take cognizance of it without trying to give a justification that no, it's a democratic thing, whatever protest was happening. Remember one thing, even before this, wherever there was an industry coming up, you have organizations like Greenpeace coming up and stopping it. That was also part of the agenda of the West. So, number one, you need to have regulation for the big tech companies in this country, because in today's era, it is so easy to change narrative, to spread disinformation, because everybody from morning to night is hooked on to the mobile. So unless you have regulation for the big tech, unless you make it a point that you cannot have external funding for India's democratic process, bring laws. Otherwise, do you think it is going to stop just because Trump is saying it or doing something? Who knows what happens 4 years down the line? Somebody else might come and start the process. It is important for us to learn where we have faltered. In the name of democracy, we have allowed a lot of things in this country, including the Shaheen Bagh, including the anti-farm law protests, where people went up to the Red Fort, tried to do all kind of sacrilege work against the sovereign country. And everything was considered, let's not harm it because it will trigger something bigger, which is fine. We did not act. But please understand, there's an external dimension. My last point, what does these agencies want from India? They want India to be externally stable, but internally in chaos, so that we can never catch up with them. Whenever they find a strong government has come, they try to do regime change. These are all part of the larger objective of regime change. Who all got money? It should come out. It should come out. Government must bring the names out. Back to you.
Right, government must bring those names. And Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, point is that even if you get those names out, tell us, what can you do after those names are out? Can you, prove that they have broken the law deliberately?
Well, you can investigate. You can find out if there is any evidence of their receiving funds, of their using those funds, bank accounts, of their spending the money, and so on. And if you are able to establish all that, then you can take legal action against such people, close their accounts, and so on. But all this is possible only when when you are able to keep tab on the activities of these agencies. Unfortunately, there we are lagging behind. I know that the personnel of the U.S. intelligence agencies, they were coming into India They were going all over to different cities, meeting different chief ministers and people
Right.
in the opposition and so on. And then they were quietly living out. Our agencies either did not catch them intentionally or didn't know about what they were doing. So, these things, one has to become more diligent, one has to follow them up, and one has to ensure that such external interference can be avoided and can be nipped in the bud because it is only to serve the objectives of those countries, the United States. As my colleague said, I mean, as the other co-panelist said, they were working for regime change in India, like they did regime change in Bangladesh and Pakistan. That was their objective. Why otherwise they would meet a Mamata Banerjee in Bengal and a DMK chief minister in Chennai and a Kejriwal in Delhi and so on.
Right.
So these things are we have to keep a close tab on these things. We have to tighten up our laws. We have to
Right.
keep a close watch on who is receiving funding and how
Absolutely.
that is being used and so on.
Right. Pathikrit, you
Then
want to
one
make a
can
point?
take action.
No, my last point will be limited to this, that many of those who claim to be independent voice in the social and digital media, many journalists included, their name should come out because they claim to be independent, but in reality they were funded by certain agencies from the West. I don't know how much they can be prosecuted because taking funds from USAID entities was not illegal.
Yeah.
Because we never had a law. That is the problem. We never had a law. But at the same time, let's understand, funding for atheism in Nepal is nothing but to dismantle Sanatana Dharma and Hinduism over there because it's a Hindu majority country. A lot of conversion happened with funding. Look at the way Sadhguru is being targeted now. So there is a larger objective in place. It is not just about funding for election. It is about creating, working on fault lines within the country so that we can keep on fighting. That is the problem. That unity aspect is being tried to be dismantled. So this is why you need to keep a tab and you need new laws because things have changed. Foreign funding for any election or political party, even in media, should completely be stopped. And secondly, please name and shame those so-called independent voices who were speaking against the establishment and claim that I am doing for the world. That is important.
Right, Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, so all of this now what you've got is basically the tip of the iceberg, which is that $21 million. And that's not the entire picture. Once the truth of where those $21 million comes out, then a lot more will be exposed, as Pathikrit was talking about who is getting funding to say what they are saying.
Yeah, $21 million is the money they just give it to the concerned Indian agencies or parties or organizations. But there is a whole lot of money which they would have spent on the visit of their intelligence agents or the activities of the people that those intelligence agents hired. If you remember, some months back, we had a number of these incidents of people putting gas cylinders and canisters on railway tracks. This was all CIA activists, CIA recruited agents, local agents who were doing that work. And this was also revealed in the social media and so on. I think the government had an idea of what was happening. To some extent, I guess they take action, but I don't know how much that action was effective and whether it was able to stop those activities. I'm not sure of that.
Pathikrit, how is it possible that we've let this go on for so long? And right now, it looks like we need to enact a brand new law to fix where you can take funding from to do what you're doing and where you can't. Absolutely.
Well, I think if you look at the recent statement by the External Affairs Minister in, I think, the Munich conference, where he said that if my ambassadors had done a half of or 1/10 of what your ambassadors are doing in India, you would have been up in arms. That indicates India was aware. So what I'm trying to tell is this: the next 4 years is your best opportunity till the time Trump is there to clean up the process within the country. Today, you cannot prosecute somebody for taking aid from USAID because there is no law which debars foreign funding. That law has to come. Secondly, you need to regulate big tech companies. how is it a fake information gets more traction? I personally faced this during the election. Anything where I was speaking in favor of the establishment were completely curtailed in terms of views, in social media, in digital media. So there were algorithms, there were AI which was used. Now, what the public policy head of many of these digital or big tech companies, what are they doing? What regulates them? You need to ask and force these big tech companies to have a subsidiary in India, have an Indian director in the board, and that if we need them, they also need us in terms of the giant market. You need to force those things. Otherwise, what is the compulsion for a big tech company to listen to India while they are based in United States? They'll exactly do what their masters in United States say. So unless you force them, this is exactly what China did. China has completely firewalled themselves from all these tech companies, knowing well that they will be used for disinformation in India by their masters in US. We cannot do it in one day, but we need to have regulation for the big tech companies. Any place where you spread a disinformation, any place where you completely curtail a kind of a viewpoint, that's exactly what they did with Donald Trump in the last 4 years. They do it in India also. The kind of misinformation against Modi that was spread. So you need regulation. Unfortunately, if you ask me today, sir, there is no regulation. Unless you regulate, you cannot control. Unless you control, you will continue to have this external interference happening in this country.
Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, I'm going to let you have the last word. Regulation is the need of the hour. But my only question is, how much of regulation will become a problem for diplomacy?
No, I mean, if you have strong laws and these laws are really monitored and implemented, and then there will be a fear that, look, whatever we will do, it will come to the notice of the Indian agencies and Indian government. So there will be some element of fear. Right now, the impression we conveyed was that the foreign agencies can send their people, they can come and go, and virtually they are able to sneak in and sneak out without much of a problem, or without any penalty, or without any punishment. So we have to strengthen our laws. We have to monitor the situation on the ground. We have to strengthen our intelligence agencies, our methods of collection of intelligence, including technological means. And only then, we can hope to have some sort of a control on these activities.
Only then can we have some hope of control of these activities. We will leave it at that. Completely out of time here on that discussion. Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, and former Indian diplomat, and Pathikrit Payne, foreign affairs expert. Thank you both of you for taking time out to be with us here on the News 9 Plus show. Rahul Gandhi has sparked a debate by declaring drones as the next revolution in modern warfare. He is also facing criticism for dismissing India's drone industry. Still in its nascent stage, the drone market in India is projected to jump from about $4.2 billion in 2025 to $23 billion by the year 2030. The government also wants to make India a global drone hub. Making India a drone manufacturing power would not only contribute to the country's target of a $5 trillion economy, and once delivered, its success will contribute to national prosperity across sectors. The government of India has launched various incentive schemes headed by India's Drone Regulation Agency, Directorate General of Civil Aviation. But what does it need to do to create a robust demand, boost manufacturing, attract investments, and facilitate exports? Joining me on the News 9 Plus show are Dr. Sanat Kaul, founder of the International Aviation and Drone Association, and also Group Captain Rajiv Narang. And in the studio is my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Thank you all of you for being with us. Nivriti, before we take it to the guests, let's put things into context over here. The fact of the matter is that India's potential to become a drone hub, a global drone hub, is yet to be tapped fully. And the fact of the matter is that all efforts are being made to do that by the government of India.
Yes, there is no denying of the fact that drones are going to be if we talk about defense industry, defense, then it is going to be the future of all the warfare, and we have seen it in Ukraine also. That this is the reason why Ukraine could dominate Russia in this war. So this is the future of warfare, and in various fields drones are playing a big role. Government has also said that it is trying to be the hub of drone production by 2030. Although India is working hard. If we talk about drone, swarm drones, you must have heard about swarm drones. These are AI-based drones. They work together in groups, like 50 drones or 100 drones. Like a swarm of bees. Yeah, it is like a swarm of bees. And even if you take down or bring down one drone, they are intelligent enough to work, even after bringing that one drone or the leader down, it will the other drone will take over as a leader, and it will start instructing other drones. So this is the kind of intelligence that is there in these drones nowadays. Although India, we cannot say that India is very ahead in this technology, but yes, government is trying to bring India forward in this technology also. So if we talk about defense, then there was a contest, IAF contest, it's called Meher Baba Swarm Drone Contest, which was introduced in 2018, if I'm not wrong. And in this, IAF invested only rupees 16 crore. And now it has, the whole ecosystem has turned out to be industry worth 1,000 crores. So this is the pace that we are coming up with, the IDEX competition.
Exponential growth, and exponential of the highest order. That's the kind of growth that's been witnessed. So let me take this across to Dr. Sanat Kaul. Dr. Sanat Kaul, talk to us. The potential is huge. A lot of efforts are being made, be it in terms of, the government pumping in money, or for the matter of the number of startups that are booming in India.
Well, the issue is government policy. We have had problems with the policy because, irrespective of the government, drones were banned. In 2014, there were civil drones I'm talking about were banned, and they were opened up after around COVID time, before COVID time. They were suddenly opened up, and not only opened up, it was opened up freely. All imports were allowed. Then the manufacturers also went back to government saying you don't liberalize in such a big way that local industry can't come up. So then modifications were made. And I think the drone, we are in 2025, it's only 5-6 years old where the civil manufacture is taking place. Whereas, the drone industry is much older. And countries like China have, they have the biggest civil drone manufacturing system and the biggest drone manufacturing company. So they always have had an advantage, and they will, and we have to, do a lot of catching up, which is required. Now, as far as defense is concerned, Group Captain Narang is here. He will tell you, but I
was just about to ask him that.
Just hold on. Let me complete.
All right.
Don't while he will tell you all that, I am told that they are doing very well. As far as civil is concerned, there is a demand lag as well as there are issues. For example, parts. Now, for getting parts, there's a total prohibition for defense. So they have to produce parts in India, including engines and all. Whereas for civil side, again, the same problem is there because they are dual use. Drones are dual use. And therefore, the issue becomes how to get certain parts which are not being made, and you can't manufacture them overnight. For example, engines. Engines are very difficult to manufacture, and they are the leading country in manufacturing of small engines for drones is China. Anyhow, with electric motors coming in, that need for engines is coming down, and India is actually going in for electric motors. Communications in drones are another issue where a lot of imports are required because we still haven't mastered the communication skill. And therefore, there are lots of, we have to diversify, we have to break the drone industry into many parts, whether it's making of frames, making of engines, making of communications, electric drones, or batteries. Batteries are being made in India in a big way. So it is taking place, but it's still not very clear what is lacking, where do we have to have special initiatives, and that is where I think I would like to conclude with these remarks and maybe join in later whenever you ask me questions. Thank you.
Right, stay with us, sir. Stay with us, sir. We have those questions that you just asked. I'm going to ask those questions to Group Captain Rajiv Narang, who's with us. What is missing, sir?
Okay, civil drone reform started with the drone rules in 2021, but technology initiatives are absent. So, ownership of civil drone technology is not there. So, what is needed is reforms in DGCA. Without reforms in DGCA, I suspect we will have major challenges. To give you an example, DGCA does not take technology development initiatives like Federal Aviation Authority of USA or EASA of Europe. Similarly, there is no Atmanirbharta policy to ensure critical components are made in India. And thirdly, procurement reforms are needed to support indigenous component manufacturers. And fourth, I think what is needed is strong implementation mechanism. Here, I would like to highlight DGCA itself on the digital sky is issuing unique identification number to the Chinese DJI drones under the model class. Now, though it is allowed, but it conveys the wrong message, where you are liberal in the wrong manner. In the defense segment, I think what is needed is we have done very well in the small drone segment. To give you an example, Meher Baba competition, what Nivriti was saying, it started in 2018, and third edition of Meher Baba was launched during Aero India by the Indian Air Force. So it's a great support. IDEX has done wonderful. Combat aerial teaming system being developed by HAL is a bright spark. Where man-unmanned teaming will be possible, being developed by HAL. So now this is a deviation from traditional trajectory of public sector. What is missing is AD-led projects. They need a hand-holding and reforms. There is a short-range UAV, which is on a proven airframe, proven engine. There's a TAPAS program. There's an Archer new generation program and remotely piloted strike aircraft, which is also called as UCAV. They have not been progressing as desired. So defense segment is more focused on small and innovative UAVs where private industry has done exceptionally well. In fact, we are going for high altitude pseudo satellite being developed by private industry as well as by National Aerospace Laboratory. But in the big drone segment, I think we need a major reform. Otherwise, we are going to lag in this segment. And we have to ensure that aero engine, that is Kaveri derivative, non-afterburner variant for the UCAV, its certification is undertaken in an expeditious manner.
Dr. Sanat Kaul, that's a comprehensive list of solutions that Group Captain Rajiv Narang has given as far as what can be done to ensure that we go from a $4 billion industry now, the drone industry, to over $20 to $30 billion in the next 4 to 5 years. But do you think that we can achieve better than that? Or how fast do you think that this industry can be developed at this stage?
You see, there are two things involved. One is the facilitation by government, where like you had a concept of in the civil area of digital sky and so on, which never really took off. So these are issues where a lot of deep thinking is required. That what is it that the infrastructure for drones is not good enough. Second is the demand for drones by the civil sector has not really grown to the extent required, although we are only about four years into the opening of drone sector by a policy change, a sudden policy change. Therefore, it takes time to build the environment. The production environment, it takes time. And but enthusiasm by a lot of young people, a lot of new startups is definitely there, and a little bit of hand-holding would be required by a specialized thing. DGCA is too big to handle drones. I mean, they just have a department of drones. They can lay out some policies.
Right.
There has to be a specialized agency if you want India to become a major drone player, a manufacturer, and so on, which has been talked about. But it can't take place in vacuum. It has to be done with encouragement, with hand-holding, and therefore a lot of work is required. Second, on the civil side,
right,
the infrastructure for flying of drones has to be improved. The concept of digital sky was very good, but it hasn't really taken off. So it was, there were sort of three layers. One is the drone layer, then the aviation layer, and then you go into the upper sky, upper atmosphere, and open outer space. So that layer has really not taken off, to the best of my knowledge.
Right.
And manufacturing is another issue where you can, Group Captain Narang has already said that for the big drones, we are still lagging behind. So there has to be a lot of hand-holding required, a lot of help required, and a lot of initiative is taken. For example, Mayor Bawa competition has been a great success. But for the civil side, there has to be much more to be done, because we stopped drone production. We did not allow drone production. We did not allow drones because we thought it was a security risk.
Right. Now it's in national interest.
5 years back.
Right. Now it's in national interest.
But you can't change it overnight and say, well, tomorrow the production will become the biggest producers in the world. It just doesn't happen like that.
Point taken, sir. Point taken, sir.
Yeah.
Point taken. But Niviti, that's how the interesting turn of events is. From once being a security threat to now a necessity for national interest.
It is actually a necessity, because you every now and then you see Chinese drones flying over LAC, and on LOC you see Pakistani drones flying over the borders, and now it is Bangladesh also, because recently you spotted Turkish Bayraktar drone on the Bangladesh's border with India. So it has become our necessity. But one thing that is very, very important is that because drones are getting intelligent, more and more intelligent, AI is being used. So every component needs to be indigenously made. You cannot afford to take components from China, which is happening right now. If you talk about the controller of the drone, 90% of it is Chinese that we are using. Maybe Group Captain Rajiv Narang can spread more light on it, because it is really very, very dangerous. If you think about that, Indian drones, AI-based drones, are controlled by China-made controllers, and which can later, in any bad situation, can be controlled by China. You can imagine the threat.
Right, Group Captain Narang, my question here is that we actually can't make electric vehicles, electric cars in this country without importing heavily from China. How can we make drones without importing heavily from China?
Okay, I'll give you an example. There are issues in, let's say, magnets or one or two critical components. Rest everything Indian, or let's say battery cells. Rest everything Indian industry is capable of more, and one more part is semiconductor. Leave these 3-4 components, Indian industry can produce everything in India. And Nivriti talked about drone controllers. There are Indian companies designing and developing drone controllers. Then why people are not using it? People are not using it because in the procurement policy, it is not made essential to procure drones with indigenous drone components. Now, that is the flaw of the policy implementation which is existing in India. There is a government e-marketplace, but when you place a drone or a drone component on the GEM site, nowhere it indicates it's an indigenous drone with indigenous drone components. Whereas there are drones with indigenous flight controllers, indigenous motors, there are many other indigenous subsystems being developed in India. Similarly, some entities are developing Navik chips, in Navik systems in India. But where is the incentive? That incentive can come from a short procurement. Let's say government entities procure certain drones. If they insist that these drones will have these indigenous components, there is 90% of these drone components can be indigenous. Similarly, there are government ministries which are taking drone services from the drone companies. If we insist that certain critical components have to be indigenous, I believe 90% of those components can be indigenous. So the problem lies in some of the procurement or services procurement reforms. Problems rise in implementation of the policies. So when I say implementation, import of drone is banned, but companies are using it. It is a well-known fact. If we start penalizing those entities who are using it or who are providing services, 90% of our vulnerabilities will be reduced. Here I want to highlight in the Ukraine, in the beginning of Ukraine war, 90% of the Ukrainians were using Chinese DJI drones. But when their own people started dying because of targeting by the opponents, they started developing their own drones. So that is the criticalities of vulnerabilities of even commercial drones, which can be used in not only in civil time but even in the wartime. So these aspects have to be really understood. There are nuances. People have to really work on it.
Dr. Sanat Kaul, the question at this stage is that, how do we go all in when it comes to drones in the country? It's not just about, making components. It is about making the entire drone, for which we have 90% capability as we speak. And also at the same time, how do you boost its business? By procurement. So you need a 360-degree effort if you want India to go from the nascent stage of drone making it is to competing with the global giants.
Yes.
Yes, I know DGCA is a safety regulator essentially, and their main purpose is to ensure safety, which is absolutely correct. If you want a drone industry to become one of the biggest in the world, you need much more than a regulator to develop it. There is a need for development. Well, FAA in US has a lot of funds and a lot of research capabilities. DGCA does not have any research capability even for aviation. So there is an issue of structure, that we are not structurally ready to develop the drone industry unless we make certain major modifications in the way we are going to develop it. Apart from liberalizing regulation, we need much more effort by the government to ensure that good hand-holding is done to develop certain parts of drones which need to be indigenously produced.
Right.
That is, I think, the crux of the matter to my thinking.
Like the remote control for drones, we need to first ensure the fact that we can start making remote controls over here. I'm afraid we're completely out of time over here. Dr. Sanat Kaul, Group Captain Rajiv Narang, and my colleague Nivriti Mohan, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on the News 9 Plus show.